Hi everyone, I'm Sharon and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be creating a slimline card featuring a cat and mice tag team of chefs preparing to serve up a delicious sushi lunch menu of maki rolls, nigiri, edamame beans, and ramen noodles, all set in your local sushi restaurant. These little chefs are just too cute for words. Let's begin with a quick overview of the Fawn products that I will be using to create this card. The sentiment and main images come from the Let's Roll stamp set, which has all of the accessories to create a full sushi scene. I used the 3 mice and bowl from A Creature Was Stirring. My 4th mouse comes from the Really High 5 stamp set. I used the mixing bowl and the egg from Baked with Love, as well as this slit die for the bowl. I used this super cute outstretched cat from the Meow You Doin, a sentiment from On the Beach, and finally, the Everyday Sentiment Banners die set. Here's a 3.5 by 8.5 inch slimline card panel cut from some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. I loaded all of my images into my Misty stamping tool and inked them up using some Fawn Jet Black Premium ink, an alcohol marker friendly ink. Off screen, I colored my images with my Ohuhu alcohol brush markers, and now I'm using some low tack washi tape to position the dies over the images. And then I run everything through my die cutting machine. Here are all of my die cuts. I just love these super cute images. Here are the sushi mice chefs from A Creature Was Stirring, all of the yummy sushi related images from Let's Roll, the flying mouse from Really High 5, the bowl of ramen noodles from Baked with Love, and this outstretched cat chef from Meow You Doin. I put the images aside to begin working on my front panel. Here, I use a wood grain embossing folder by Momenta, which measures 4.25 by 5.5 inches. In experimenting around with my Sizzix machine, I find that I need to place my cardstock between 2 pieces of acetate inside of the embossing folder to prevent my cardstock from being too heavily pressed upon, because this often leads my cardstock to tear and crack, especially when I use this wood grain embossing folder. I do cut up, butt up, and tape the embossed wood grain cardstock together, but I'll be covering up the seam where I joined the 2 pieces together in the final product. Next, instead of using a traditional brown color, I ink blend some Candied Apple Distress Oxide over the embossed wood grain to make the kitchen counter really pop against all of the sushi images. For the wall, I take some white Yeti Pigment Ink and the 2 Japanese cherry blossom flower stamps from Let's Roll, and I stamp the flowers on another piece of white cardstock. I stamp some of the flowers off the edge to create the effect of pattern paper. I sprinkle some Wow Clear Gloss Superfine embossing powder over the flowers, pour the excess back into the jar, and use my heat tool to melt the powder. Here you can see how shiny the flowers appear against the cardstock. Next, I ink blend some Salvaged Patina Distress Oxide over the panel, and you can see the heat embossed areas resist the ink. I love the way the white cherry blossoms pop against the Salvaged Patina. I ink blend just a little bit of Peacock Feathers Distress Oxide to darken the edges of the panel. Then I use the largest of the Heffy Doodle Stitch Slimline Trio dies to create the stitching detail around the wood grain table surface and around the entire card panel. Here is a close-up of the wood grain texture and the stitching detail. I stamp my sentiments in some VERSAFINE ONYX black ink, and once the ink dries, I re-stamp the sentiments with some clear VERSAFINE embossing ink. Then I pour on some more of the clear Wow embossing powder and use my heat tool to melt the powder. Just look at how beautifully glossy black the sentiment comes out here. I use the largest and the smallest of the everyday sentiment banner dies to cut out my sentiment strips. Now for the fun of assembling the card. After laying out all of my images on the card panel to figure out the perfect positioning for my card design, the first two things I adhere are the sentiment banners. I want to make sure the sentiments both stand and balance out the top third of the card's panel. In case you are unfamiliar with the two main types of sushi in this stamp set, there are the traditional maki rolls, which usually contain fish, veggies, and rice all rolled up in seaweed, and the nigiri sushi, like this pink one here, which consists of a thin slice of raw fish placed atop some rice. So here we have the mouse in the white chef's hat, making sure there's a good dollop of spicy wasabi for the tuna nigiri and dynamite roll. I use liquid adhesive to glue down the images that are the furthest back in the distance, such as the soy sauce bottle and the wooden sushi platters. Now I place the bowl of edamame beans under the sentiment banner next to the soy sauce bottle. The images that are closer to the front, I use foam tape to pop them off the panel and to give them the illusion of being in the foreground. There is a pair of chopsticks sticking out from the bowl of ramen noodles being prepared by the mouse in the apron. On the second wooden platter, there is an assortment of avocado, cucumber, and salmon rolls. In the top right corner in the background, I have the sweet orange kitty rolling a California roll. I have another sweet mouse adding a bright green dab of wasabi on the end of the other wooden serving platter. And finally, I have this darling mouse adding a final salmon nigiri sushi to the dish. He is just adorable, carrying the sushi on his back. To create the card base for my Slimline card panel, I have a 7 by 8.5 inch piece of accent opaque 120-pound cardstock that I score at the midway 3.5 mark on the 7-inch side. I use liquid adhesive to adhere the card front to the card base. And here we have it, my finished card. I have a kitty and mice tag team of sushi chefs preparing to serve up one of my favorite lunch menus of maki rolls, nigiri sushi, edamame beans, and ramen noodles. This is such a fun and colorful scene. Who wouldn't want to dine at this fine sushi restaurant? Well, thank you very much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I hope that you will join me again next time. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.